We are also graced today by the presence of Dr. Agha Ali Raza as our keynote speaker. Dr. Agha is the founding director of the Center for Speech and Language Technologies. He is an assistant professor at the Department of Computer Science at LUMS. His research interests include speech and natural language processing, speech-based human-computer interfaces, and information and communication technologies for development. Over the last 3 years, the benefits of his research have impacted the lives of more than 300,000 people through various projects in Pakistan, India, and West Africa. Please welcome Dr. Agha with a huge round of applause.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you so much for the introduction. And thank you all for coming, for joining us today. Thank you, Ms. Sabahat, Ms. Rosina, everyone who has arranged this very timely discussion around AI and how it can help us, how it can be our partner. So in our journey today that we'll embark upon, we have 3 stages. The first stage is about the who and the what of the world of AI. The second stage is about things that you can take away and start using today. So you might already be using some of those things today, but we're going to reflect a little bit more into the details of them. And finally, in the third stage, we will reflect upon some of the challenges and limitations that we as the people who are dealing with AI and all people who are creating AI are still pondering about. We don't have answers for many of those things, and we should know that. So, but before all of that, let's watch a movie.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
And that's the question. Let's keep thinking about that question as we realize that this video was entirely AI generated. Except for the audio. The audio in this particular video was done by a voice artist. It was not Morgan Freeman, as rightly claimed, but the video was entirely AI generated. You may prefer to call it a deep fake. We can at some point go into the discussion of what's the difference between a completely AI generated thing and an audio or a video deep fake. But let's not go there right now. Let's keep thinking about that question, and then let's begin the first part of our journey through the wonderful world of AI. All right, I'm not a fan of definitions. Students are gonna love me. I'm not a fan of definitions. I'm just going to give you one definition. And in the words of the Lord of the Rings, the one definition to rule them all. So just remember, just one definition to take away from my talk today. What is AI and machine learning? It's the ability of a machine to learn from its experience. That's it. Just remember that. If you have a calculator, and let's assume it has a bug, when you do a 3 plus 3, it gives you 9. No matter how many times you input that same numbers, it's going to give you the same output. You're going to do it for 10,000 years, it's going to give you the same answer if it's a good calculator and can survive 10,000 years. But yeah, it's going to give you the same answer because it does not have any capability to evaluate its output and to improve. When you add that capability to a machine and the machine starts improving with experience, we call that artificial intelligence. Just remember that one definition. What is experience? Things that we do wrong, our mistakes, and things that we do right. the things which we have done correctly. All right, with this one definition, let's think of the various things. Like at this point, if I just ask you to ponder upon the various forms in which AI manifests itself in the world around us. So first, we are looking a little bit farther away. So you're looking at things like the robots by Boston Dynamics, the rovers on Mars. By the way, when I'm usually conducting a class on these topics, I always ask my students to think about, like, why do we need AI in a remote-controlled car? So think about that question, and maybe we can discuss it later. But yeah, Amica, Sophia, self-driving cars, robots that mimic animal life forms, and so on and so forth. But that's too far away. AI is also present pretty close to our hearts. And literally, if you're keeping your phone here, then really very close to your hearts. So it's in your search. It's in your Alexa and Cortana and Siri, your conversational agents, your chatbots. It's around you the time when you unlock your phone just by, when your phone just unlocks itself by looking at you or through your fingerprints. When you're doing a translation using Google Translate, when you're marking an email as spam or not spam, and then as a result, your bad emails go to a separate folder. All of those are manifestations of artificially intelligent systems. So that brings us to this big question. And by the way, we will also start diving into some of the common things. Like one of the goals of this discussion is also the ability to have an intelligent conversation about AI, which is not completely marred by the gossip and the rumors which are around us. So there are two poles, as we will all realize. One pole around AI is that it's nothing, it's just if-else statements, normal computer programs. AI is nothing, it's a bubble, it's going to burst. The other extreme is that robots are going to come and kill us. So we live in just these two extreme poles. And we want today, at the end of this talk, to be able to situate ourselves in what we call the Goldilocks zone of expectation, like the just right expectation from AI. What do we need to do with that just right expectation? All right, so what's the difference between traditional computer science, whatever we used to do for many, many years, and what's AI? So these are some of the problems that we used to have with traditional computer science. Do we have a way of going back here? Previous slide, please. One more. Sorry, okay. So these are some of the problems that we used to have with traditional computer science. So like playing an audio file, displaying text on screen, sorting a list of numbers, searching for a string, and so on and so forth. For all of those problems, we knew how to write a set of instructions, a program. So it was fairly easy to write a program. So the computer used to get the data, it used to get a program which we wrote, and then it used to give us the outputs. That was traditional computer science. But then things changed. We started running into problems for which we did not know how to write a program. Given a photograph, an image, a CT scan, an MRI scan, is there a tumor in it or not? How would you write a program for that? We don't know. We can write a set of 1,000,000 rules, but they're going to fail on the very next image because that's what rules do. They're not very flexible. Given the photograph of a house, what's the price of the house? Now, as humans, we can estimate. If I ask you, is that a cheap house or an expensive mansion? You're going to probably say it looks fairly expensive. How do I teach a computer to say the same? Given an audio waveform, what was said, what your Alexa and Cortana are doing throughout the day, how do we write a program for that? We don't know. Given a piece of text, how do you summarize that? We don't know how to write a set of instructions, do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and you have a summary. We don't know. So that was the beginning of this era where we said, we have data, we don't know how to write the program, but these are good problems to solve. So we said, okay, we can have another approach. Let's get a lot of data, let's tag it. Use an expert, ask a doctor to mention with each image whether there's a tumor in it or not. Get a bunch of photographs of houses, ask an expert realtor to just write out the actual prices of those houses. And now, this is where the magic begins. You let the machine figure out a mapping between these inputs and the outputs. What is in a particular photograph which says that there's a tumor? What is in a photograph of a house which betrays its price? That's what machine learning and AI does. So here you have on the top traditional computer science. Your data, the program that you wrote, and you get an output. Down below, which you probably, maybe, I hope you can see that, but you have the data and you have the output, not the program. You give the data and the output, and the program outputs the machine outputs the program. And that's literally true. So the mappings which are created by machine learning models, we can actually convert them into actual programs written in programming languages. So here the computer is coming up with a set of instructions to figure out the problem that we're giving to it. That's the difference between traditional computer science and AI. Another question that we get a lot. What's the difference between AI and ML? I can give you many fancy answers. One is a subset of the other, and one like, let me give you the real one. It was a rebranding. And it has to do with something that happened around 1970. In the initial era of artificial intelligence in 1960s, there was a big hype around it. If you look at the newspapers from that time, they say things like, we no longer would need human companions, robots are going to be our slaves, robots are going to be our companions, and so on and so forth. And who bought into that hype? The funding agencies, DARPA, the Department of Defense. They bought into it. They started pouring a lot of money into AI research. Then what happened? Two researchers, Minsky and Papert, they wrote a paper in which they showed that there was a very simple problem. I'm not going to go into the details of the problem because I understand that we don't have a room full of computer scientists here, so let me just say this. Say it's a problem of 2 + 2 = 4. And if I can conclusively show that a particular machine can never solve this, like never, wouldn't you be disappointed in the abilities of that machine? It's rubbish, right? It cannot solve this problem. So there is a problem in logic, the XOR problem, the exclusive OR problem. It's like as simple as 2 + 2 = 4. And they showed conclusively in their paper in 1969 that that problem cannot be solved with the state-of-the-art AI that existed at that point. So what happened? The complete reversal of poles. All funding for AI research dried out. No one was willing to give a dime for AI research. And that continued for 10 years, nearly 10 years. We call that period the AI winter. By the way, during that time, computer scientists were able to solve the problem. The XOR problem was not the big deal. The big deal was that the expectation-reality gap, the bubble actually burst. Like everyone lost interest. So now what was happening was that people were applying for funding for this new AI research, which could solve that problem and many more, but there was no funding because there was the word AI written on top of the applications. So what did the scientists do? They said, let's rebrand it. Let's call it something else. Let's call it machine learning. That's where the term came into being. It was a rebranding of AI originally. However, once that new era began, we did realize that there was a fundamental philosophical difference that had occurred. In the era of pre-1969, the goal of this field was to emulate humans, to create machines which are more and more like humans, so solve a problem like humans do, create logical machines. So logic was a dictating factor. Beyond 1970, in the era of machine learning, we started focusing more on creating better machines rather than machines that emulate humans. So solve the problem, not necessarily like a human solves it. And we shifted our attention from logic to statistical learning, to the world of probability and statistics. So that was a fundamental philosophical difference between the two fields, but that was an afterthought. Nowadays, yeah, it's fine to say that both terms could be replaceable for the other, or AI could be thought of as a superset of machine learning, like whatever. Like all of these are just afterthoughts, but now you know where it all comes from. All right, so what happened a year back? Why this buzz? Like we were working on, we as in like me, we were working on language models for like many years. And people before me, like scientists have been working on language models for the past 30 or so years. In my PhD, which started in 2010, I worked on these things. But no one knew about these things. Like no one had heard the term language model. So what happened? What was the difference of when ChatGPT came into being? So let me first give you again something of a peek into how things work. What's a language model? Think of a black box that can assign probabilities, and as you know, probabilities on a scale of 0 to 1. So that I can assign probabilities to strings of words, that is sentences. So I can give a sentence to this black box and it can tell me how probable this sentence is. Now what would that mean? How likely is it that a human would utter this sentence? This model, this black box, is now known as a language model. It can take in language and say how probable that language is. Now that can capture a lot of things. Grammar, real world facts. So if you say, I don't know, the sheep was flying, that's probably not very probable because sheep generally don't fly. But if you say pigs fly, that's an idiomatic expression and that's perfectly fine. So language models use human language, historically used human language, to figure out what's likely and what's not likely. We recently learned that when these language models are based on a lot of data, something different occurs. Their responses become very meaningful and very natural, okay? And then what did OpenAI do on top of that? That second big piece of the puzzle which has like, in fact there are three pieces, but like the second of the three was what we call the human reinforcement learning. So generally a language model just gives you the most probable answer. Human reinforcement learning means I give you the possible answers and you tell me which one you prefer, and then I tell it to the computer. So next time it's not going to give me just the most probable answer, but the answer that you're going to prefer. So that human reinforcement learning is what is giving you those realistic answers in your ChatGPT. So there are two phases, the probability phase and then the human reinforcement learning phase. If you want to compare the two outputs, just talk to ChatGPT in Urdu and see the difference between the English output and the Urdu output. The Urdu version of ChatGPT has not gone through human reinforcement learning. The English version has. So ask it to write a poem in Urdu and in English and you'll figure out the difference. One of them is very realistic, very human-like. The other is just probable, but not so amazing in terms of a piece of art. All right, and finally, another thing which really enables us, and by the way, I'll be ending all the dry, boring stuff here, so after this we're going to have fun. But yeah, another thing that really gives us an amazing capability is to map everything that we have into a mathematical universe which is based on meaning. So think of a sentence, and I can extract the meaning of a sentence and map it into, let's assume this room is a 3D space, and I can say, okay, this sentence exists here in terms of its meaning. So let's say the sentence was a black sheep. So here is the sentence, a black sheep. Say I have a photograph of a black sheep. I extract the meaning from the photograph and map it into this space. Where would it be mapped? Very close to this sentence, which was a black sheep. Let's say I have an audio file in which someone has said a black sheep or ek kali bhed. Any language. We extract the meaning, map, it will be very close to this. So things, regardless of their modality, image, video, audio, text, if you extract their semantics, if you extract their meaning and map it into a meaning space, those things come very close to each other. And this is where we can actually use them to transfer from one medium to the other. So when I'm going to show you in a few slides how you can generate realistic images using these AI agents, you should not be surprised because it's all happening in that semantic space. By the way, there's a name for that. We call that the embedding space. But let's not dwell on the name. What's in the name? It's the meaning space. The space where things are mapped according to the meanings that they have. Images, text, audio, video, whatever. All right, ready for the journey? So down the rabbit hole, we will follow the travel of Alice through this wonderland. The first quick activity, we're not going to do it here. When a few weeks back, I was conducting a workshop with the LUMS faculty, and there was a message that I wanted to convey across. So I would like you to basically imagine this activity with me. If I ask you to co-create a joke using ChatGPT. So let's assume you all have your computers. I ask you, create a joke using ChatGPT, but here's the catch. You need to stand up and tell that joke to everyone, and it needs to be funny. Okay, now just imagine yourself in that situation. And furthermore, you're not allowed to say, ChatGPT stinks, it's not funny at all. You cannot say that. Okay, now what does that mean? That's the relationship, that's the symbiosis that we have with AI in this age. Just try to internalize this, like really think about this. You're creating a joke, but you're in command. If it's not funny, it's your problem, not the AI's problem. So now map it to everything wrong that can go with AI, and this same metaphor, hopefully, will accompany you. So here is something, by the way, that I created. I asked it to create a mesmerizing couplet signifying our insignificance in the vast universe and also our significance in our own individual worlds. The couplet should balance between these two aspects, break down our pride, promote humility, and highlight the infinite possibilities of creating a positive impact on the life of others. Notice that the prompt is very elaborate. It's very clear in what I want. So it created this couplet. In the vast cosmos, we are but a fleeting spark. Yet in one heart, we can light the dark. It did balance all of the things that I asked it to. Then I asked it to create a fun tongue twister after the universe of Alice Through the Looking Glass. Not just a tongue twister. Try it out. Let me try it out. Alice asked the white rabbit which wristwatch Red Rook rightly rocked. I can say it, yes. I should have won a Pepsi over this. But yeah, all right. So it did give me a pretty good one. All right, so here's the lesson. As teachers, as educators, ChatGPT or any other AI could be your assistant. It could be a co-pilot. It could be a co-instructor. But remember, you are in control. You are responsible, not the AI. There is something called automation bias, which actually propels us to believe everything that an AI spews out and just use it without counter-checking. Just try to avoid that. So this is just like I started learning to ride horses a year back, and my teacher, my ustad, always used to say in the beginning, Ali saab, ghoda chala raha hai, aap nahi chala rahe. You should be the one in control. It's not a good excuse to say, my horse wanted to come here, that's why I'm here. So the AI is not in control, you are. All right, so with that, let's look at a few things. So here, in these next few slides, the goal is not to give you exact prompts. The goal is not to give you exact tasks. The goal is just to open up the vast possibilities. I will be mentioning some of the things, which most of the things that I'll mention here which are available in the free version of ChatGPT or in the softwares. Some of these are based on the paid version. So you can just ask Ms. Sabahat later to get you the paid version. Just kidding. Not on me, not on me. I didn't say that. But yeah. All right, so let's assume you're developing a new course. You want a course outline for the course. And you want a thought companion just to brainstorm with. Here is a prompt. So I gave it a prompt to develop a course on research ethics, and then I gave it very specific instructions. The audience, the kind of coverage I need, the number of classes there will be, the amount of contact hours I have, and so on and so forth. And it gave me an amazing initial course outline, just based on that prompt. But what if this is all based on its own knowledge of research ethics? What if I want to base the outline on a particular chapter? My chapter. I'm planning a lecture. Let's assume I'm planning this talk, and there is a chapter on which this talk is based. How would I ask ChatGPT to base the outline on that particular chapter? There is something called Retrieval Augmented Generation, RAG. So RAG is where you chat about a particular document with your ChatGPT. So essentially you give it a Word file, you give it a PDF of the chapter, and then talk about that chapter with it. It is available in the paid version of the ChatGPT. It is also available in the free version of Bing Chat. So if you go to Bing, open up a PDF, and then just open up the Bing Chat on the side. So Microsoft Edge, open up Microsoft Edge, open up a PDF file, and then start your Bing Chat from the side. It will allow you to chat about that document. So here I've given it a chapter from a book that I teach, and then I just ask it to summarize the chapter for me, to generate an outline for me, a lecture outline, quizzes. Give me 5 multiple choice quizzes from this chapter, new. Give me quizzes which are based on differential of the difference in the backgrounds of the students in the class. So you just ask it. I have students who are beginner level, intermediates, and advanced students in English, let's say. Develop questions for me for all of those students, and it's going to do all of that for you. So RAG, just remember that, and remember that it is available in Microsoft Edge through the Bing Chat. You don't need to pay anything for this. So yeah, and again, sky's the limit. Another thing that we teachers do a lot are presentations. Wouldn't it be amazing if, like, I think of a topic and it gives me a presentation? Well, it does. So you can do it in ChatGPT directly, but in that case, you need to know a little bit of computer science. So you're going to ask it to generate VBA codes. So yeah, it stinks. But what if you use another third-party software? So there are many available. All of them are paid, unfortunately, but some of them allow you some free trials. So you can try them out, like Tome and Gamma and the Slides Pilot. Just give them a prompt. This is what I want to do. And then they're going to develop the whole presentation for you. So that's your first version. By the way, the presentation will also include images which are copyright free. So those are all AI-generated images. All right. Say you want to explain a concept to your students and you're having trouble coming up with an intuitive explanation. Ask ChatGPT. So here I've asked ChatGPT to help me explain neural networks, which is a concept from machine learning, to a 3-year-old. By the way, you should be very careful in analyzing the output that it gives you. It says in the first line, explaining neural networks to a 3-year-old can be a bit challenging, but I'll try my best. So it feels that it does not have a lot of confidence in the output that it's giving. By the way, the output is amazing, but it just expressed that it's not very easy to explain it to. However, when I asked it to explain a solar system to a 3-year-old, it said, explaining the solar system to a 3-year-old could be a fun and exciting experience. It has high confidence that it can do a good job of that. You can use this to compare concepts, take two concepts from your own domain, compare them, pros and cons, things like that. It's going to do an amazing work of that. Poetry. But again, you know that. You know how to generate poetry. By the way, if you ask it to generate a poem about City School, as I did here, it will praise the school amazingly. I resisted the temptation of asking it to write a critical poem about City School. I have tried that everywhere else that I went. I even was giving a talk to civil servants in their training from 18th to 19th and 19th to 20th grade. I asked it to generate a poem about the civil services of Pakistan in a critical manner. Or literally, usne dhajjiyan uda di thi and like that. I resisted the temptation to generate one here. I've done the same at LUMS, by the way, so yeah, it knows our faults. It can actually write about that. All right, thought companion. So let's assume you're developing a lesson plan for grade 6 journal science. What are some of the aspects that I should consider? So it's going to give you a very good initial list to begin. Here is another one. How does the following feel like for the opening of a keynote address on human-AI symbiosis? Here is a movie that was generated completely by AI. And it gave me the pros and cons of this movie. So now you know why Morgan Freeman was on the second slide of this discussion. I acted upon what I'm teaching you. And then, for those of you who are into computer science, it has been trained on Stack Overflow and GitHub and all of that. It is amazing at coding. So the base versions are great, but the fine-tuned versions are even more amazing. So there goes my job. So it does really good job of writing computer programs, debugging computer programs, telling you the exact problems in computer programs. All right, images. This could be a fun activity. Again, this is based on the free version. So if you go to Bing Image Generator, just create a free account, and then give it a few instructions. So a month back, I conducted a machine learning session with school students. You may have heard about it, the Future Tech Workshop. So we had kids from ages 11 to 18 in our classes. This prompt was generated by a group of kids. Pegasus flying towards the Milky Way with stars and planets in the background. A mysterious glimmer surrounds its wings, and a distant lightning splits the dark sky. Ready for the images? Generated these. So we actually conducted a competition amongst the kids. They had to come up with the best artwork amongst themselves. Here is another one, a gorgeous abandoned mountain fort in a fairyland forest in Pakistan. Recognize the architecture of Pakistan, recognize the domes, the Muslim style of architecture. These are all AI generated, and this is from the free version. If you go to Midjourney and use the paid version, it's gonna be stunned. It's amazing. And now you know how it's working. Remember the semantic spaces? So my sentences are going into a semantic space, and it's getting images from the same semantic space, and then merging them together through a process called diffusion and giving me these outputs. All right, so here I'm going to give you some examples of generation of audios using AI. So can we play these? Ocean waves crashing again. And we have an excited crowd cheering at a cricket game in Pakistan. These people never existed. These voices were never uttered by any human being. All right, learning new concepts. Say you want to learn a new programming language. Say you want to learn to play piano. Say you want to learn to swim. Ask it. Tell it exactly what you want. 6 months, 6 weeks plan, 3 classes per week, 1 hour per class. Here are my goals. This is where I am right now. It's going to give you a customized plan of learning. These are some other things that I tried with it. I asked it to convert to Urdu. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? I love tongue twisters. It said, agar ek woodchuck kar sakta hai, to woodchuck kitna woodchuck kar sakta hai. So I wanted to try out its capabilities with wordplay, so I asked it for the meaning of the word apnapan in Urdu. Now, apnapan has a common meaning in Urdu, apnaiyat. It has another meaning, apna and pan from English, my joke, my pun. It was able to get that. It said there is a wordplay in there. You may want to say here, apna pan, my joke. All right, please summarize thinking fast and slow in 100 words. It did. Yesterday was my wedding anniversary and I forgot about it. My wife is upset. Please advise me in 3 30-word steps. This stays with us. My wife is not going to see that like ever. So it says, acknowledge your mistake and apologize sincerely, make it up to her with a thoughtful gesture or gift, and take steps to prevent it from happening again. Like, yeah. So now you know she should never see that. She's going to say, if a dumb machine can do that, then why can't you? It has the ability to recognize emotions. It has the ability to plan trips for you. I asked it to plan a trip to Lahore for me. It suggested places that I had never seen. And then much, much more. You can write customized emails. You can write the website of the person to whom you're writing your email, give it your introduction, and then ask it to write an email customized to these things. It's going to write a customized email to these 2 people, and so on, like much, much more. All right. One of the biggest challenges that we have with AI right now is its tendency to hallucinate. So humans hallucinate when they perceive things not grounded in reality. Like this person here, which you do not see and I see. No, so if I see a person here, I'm hallucinating, hopefully. So that's hallucinations. AI hallucinates when it says something which is not grounded in its own training data. Now there's a philosophical debate here that is also creativity, but these hallucinations can really convince you to wrong things. Like for example here, it tried to convince me that I'm a business faculty member, not a computer science faculty member, at LUMS, and I asked it to give me the reasons for why it's saying that, and it gave me titles to my papers which I had never written, and links to my websites which I do not have, and my LinkedIn profile which I do not have. It made it all up, just to justify what it had originally said, hallucinations. And other problems which have, there are many, many other problems, but I know we are running out of time. So there are problems like biases, societal biases. There are problems like the bonds that we form with the AI, but the AI not being able to follow up with those bonds. So like you are talking to a machine which is available to you 24/7, an amazing companion. But if you develop a strong bond with the machine, what would happen to you psychologically when it cannot come through as a real friend? And these things are now becoming real, especially in the context of kids. All right, so let's conclude. With AI, we can have expectations which are either too optimistic or too extreme, like it's going to replace humans, it's going to replace teachers, it's going to replace everything, robots are going to come in, and that's the end of us. Or we can have too pessimistic beliefs about it, like no practical applications, useless, just a bubble, it's going to go away. The real Goldilocks zone is that AI can assist us. It can make us more efficient. It can vacate our cycles for doing more creative things. But we do need the ability to practice responsible AI, to check everything that it's producing before consuming that information. So there is something for everyone here. Educators, you need to adapt and embrace the future. Prepare for lifelong learning. So it's no longer that your initial 16 or 18 or 20 years of learning was enough. You need to keep updating yourselves, as we all do. Explore new affordances and challenges. Parents, if we had any, but if some of them are watching, engage with your kids. Let them use technology, but let it be mediated. Make sure that they know what's right and what's wrong. And admins and policymakers, there's a lot of work coming your way. Making policies around things, plagiarism. I would love if there are any questions around plagiarism, and then we'll talk about that. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir, for sharing such valuable insight with all of us. Dear audience, you are now requested to please ask questions from Dr. Agha.
It's been first time introduced in Pakistan. So I was, wondering how to create the sessions. I was finding it very difficult to, design something to apply with my clients and all. And I used this ChatGPT and it gave me the best structure that I was so thankful, and definitely I followed it along, and it gave me a wonderful result as well. So I'm not like asking you a question rather here, I'm just sharing my experience and seconding this work that you are doing. The very reason that I came here, I wanted to try it out and learn more about it. Keep up the good work, and I hope all the colleagues will enjoy this session further even. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Just a few quick follow-ups on that. So thank you for sharing your experience. One of the things that we are learning is that whatever the AI is telling you, whatever ChatGPT is conversing with you, it's very firmly tied with the exact prompt that you're giving to it. So it's right now just limited by our ability of asking the right question. So it's like Edgar Allan Poe's poem, doubting, dreaming, dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. So like dare to ask that question. Like, for example, one of the activities in one of our workshops was ask ChatGPT a question to which it gives you an incorrect answer. And the best answer to that question was asking ChatGPT, what are some of the questions I can ask you for which you're going to give me an incorrect answer? And it gives you an amazing list. So just very few of our students were able to get to that question. So it's just like just pushing the frontiers of what to ask. What can it do? So we don't know. As a community of AI people in the world, we right now do not know the limits on the capabilities of these large language models. Everyone is exploring. We're just trying to push it and find better and better means. So it's partially science and partially art at this point.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I'm Neelam Nisar from the Aptabad campus. Thank you, first of all, thank you very much for such an enlightening session. I think a lot of ambiguities that we had in our mind regarding artificial intelligence and how it may overpower us have just been put to rest now. With the question, you talked about AI hallucinations. So the question I want to ask is, how can then we distinguish between realistic and unrealistic AI?
Great point. With your permission, let me give a slightly different spin to your question first, and it will probably become even more relevant for the audience. can we distinguish reliably between a writing that is produced by AI versus a human? Ready for the answer? No. We cannot. Might be a surprise for some of you. Turnitin has that option, whether this writing was produced by AI or not. Turnitin has admitted that there are a lot of false positives. Let me give you the extent of the false positives. Give it Shakespeare's writings. It says for many of them that these were AI produced. Give it Bible. This has been tried. This is actually a piece from a newspaper. So give it Bible, it says it was AI produced. Give it the Declaration of Independence, and it says it was AI produced. So either you believe in time travel, or you do, or we agree that at this point asking this question, and I want to be very clear about this claim because it's a big claim, asking the question whether a particular piece of writing was produced by a human or a machine, we don't have a way of solving this right now. However, that's not the same question as saying whether this writing was produced by, let's say, Sajda or a machine. So Ali or a machine. That's authorship attribution. That we can solve. I can train on your writings and then say this is not how you write. Like when your teacher recognizes that this is, so suddenly your emails have become such amazing, like you used to have a hard time putting two words together. So like you can recognize it for a particular person, but just asking that ill-formed question of AI versus human is not solvable right now. Hallucinating machines versus non-hallucinating machines, the hallucinations go away quite a lot if you use a chatbot which can give you real references. So if you use the GPT-4 through Bing, that is connected to the internet, it will give you references for what it's saying. So you can verify the hallucinations from there, whether it's hallucinating or not. Another way of doing that is to ask it to give you intermediate stuff, like give me the answer and also tell me why you're saying that. And sometimes you figure out that because your original prompt was not that great, it's just playing along. It's not hallucinating, it's just giving you the answer according to the question that you asked. So you need to ask a clearer question.
Next we'll have one more question. This will be the final question. Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Ali. Something that I was concerned about, you touched upon that as well, the Turnitin part. But something that was available a lot more earlier than ChatGPT were spin bots. So how do you figure that teachers like ourselves can work around spin bots, and how do you figure that Turnitin would tell us if it's been spinned or if it is AI generated?
Right. We need to drastically improve upon assessments. I do not think that, so I have reviewed the policies which my alma mater, like Carnegie Mellon, which is using, like University of Michigan and Ann Arbor, most of those places have come to peace with this concept that the recognition, the policing that someone has used AI or not is probably not going to last for a long time. So then the other option is come up with a new form of assessments. Like for example, if you want your student to write an essay, ask them to write two versions. Write an essay themselves, then write another essay using ChatGPT and compare. Now they can write both of them using ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to compare, but I think we can agree they're putting in a lot of effort through that, reading through and making sure one looks like their production and the other looks like the production of ChatGPT. So as long as you're goal-oriented, the goal is to teach the student the art of writing, for example, then according to that goal, you can envision new forms of assessments. So this is just one example. There are many, many other recommendations. By the way, OpenAI itself has recently produced a blog post on the use of AI for educators. I would highly recommend that you go through that. They have given a lot of examples in there of prompts and of things that you can do with assessments and other stuff.
Dear audience, we value your questions, and you may ask further questions during the refreshment break.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable contributions.